In the far, far, farthest world, inhabited by hedgehogs, a normal animal like many, who looked out the window and dreamed, Lino, the singing hedgehog, woke up and did all the housework his parents had given him. He cleaned his bedroom up, and he cleaned his little paws after a bath. He was a small, cuddling hedgehog, and he was the only son of a singing hedgehog couple. In this far world, the singing hedgehogs were hedgehogs inclined by nature to sing since they were puppies. Indeed, they shined in every art, while our Lino, unfortunately, couldn't sing at all. Singing hedgehogs were rare, but even rarest were the puppies who couldn't do that. But sure, he could learn, and he could become the best one. However, most of all, he wanted to travel and discover what was beyond the hill. Lino couldn't study how to sing because the only school was expensive, but he never surrendered. He went around the house, but he couldn't find anyone. His parents were gone out to do some shopping, but unfortunately, they never came back home. Lino had been waiting for them for days, but in the end, he felt the call of hunger. He went around the house looking for food. He didn't enjoy the idea of going out. He went into his parents' bedroom. He discovered some biscuits there. They had been hidden by his father. He got food for at least 3 days. He collected the most useful items from all around the house. Hunger was calling over, and he hadn't any choice. He had to go out. Lino went to the ceiling room, and he found a stain of burnt on the pavement. Maybe his mother had forgotten the iron yesterday, so she had used a carpet to conceal it. He took his bundle. As Lino wanted to become a traveler, his parents had bought him a handy lamp which had been put near the window to show him the way back home. It would be like some very far, far star, and it would remind him that they will always be there. When he would be stronger, he could take it with him. Now it was too big and heavy, and he decided to leave it at home. He went to the kitchen to take some more food, a berry and a biscuit, some water, and a big marshmallow. Then Lino went out. He was just a little helpless hedgehog who had been waiting for his parents, a puppy of just a few months, lost in the woods. Lino saw his home getting far, far away, but the sunset was beautiful, and the shadows and the colors were immortal. Lino's long journey had begun. Lino was terrorized. He looked for a shelter, somewhat of a leaf, maybe to protect him under from some rain. But first, he looked at the aurora at the top of the hill. It was beautiful, and the sky was full of stars. And he seemed to read his name through the stars. And he saw a falling star and some fireflies. Lino wished to see his parents again, but because of the cold, he desisted. Hedgehogs as puppies are not furry enough to protect themselves from the cold. Lino found a blade of grass under which to recover himself. The wind blew, and the branches of trees moaned. Everything was spectral, and listening to those unknown noises, Lino began to tremble. Never he had spent a night outside. Furthermore alone, he began to cry, and it began to rain. He cried because he didn't understand where his parents had gone and what had happened to them. The night ran fast, and the dawn began to warm up the place. In the early light of the morning, Lino woke up. He had fainted in the middle of the night because of his weakness. As he woke up, he heard a noise in the bush, and he immediately imagined a fierce animal ready to eat him. Lino tightened and wept while he tightened to the branch with the leaves that had sheltered him. But with some great surprise, not a monster emerged, but a she-hedgehog. She was a she-hedgehog just a few bigger than he was. He had never seen such a beautiful she-hedgehog, and he stayed paralyzed. Lino was now experiencing a different kind of fear, and he had never felt first sight of love. The she-hedgehog came near with curiosity. She was just a puppy too, and she told him her name was Lina. A long time ago, she had run out from her home, and she couldn't find her way back when she had changed her mind. The only memory from home was a pink ribbon her parents had given her. She came near him, and they began to talk. They soon became friends. Lina asked Lino what that bag was, and Lino just complied. A bag! They laughed, and then Lino asked to look at her pink ribbon, but Lino said no, nobody could. Lina asked Lino, "Do you want to come with me?" And Lino immediately said, "Yes." She couldn't stop talking either. They went to the top of the hill to look at the stars. They were beautiful, but Lino only had eyes for Lina. He felt sure to stay near her friend. They looked at the aurora until the morning after. It started to rain again, more and more, but there was a cavern, and Lino and Lina got in. Lino was cold, but Lino had 3 firestones, and he could light a fire. They warmed themselves up, and they fell asleep in a hedgehog's way, donut-shaped, one near the other. It was beautiful. Lino and Lina looked at each other for a long time through the morning firelight. Lino also took from his sack a big marshmallow to roast on the fire, and he said, "Loup de Vesoul," which was a way to intend it was such an important thing. That was why it was the last food left. After that, they would go and look for something else to eat. He divided it in the middle, and he lent one part to Lina. They used some sticks they had hurriedly found under the rain, and they slept and dreamt beautiful dreams in the warm and safe shelter. Lino dreamt how his next day would be. He saw himself riding free as the wind, and he seemed to be happy. Then Lina arrived. He understood that there was nothing more important than that, freedom. But he missed his parents, and he dreamt of them tucking his covers and kissing his frown the day before. Then he dreamt of beautiful fairy places again, where Lina was, and they run together toward the sun. And they went to the lake and the big rivers and mountains, and once they had arrived, they had drank a lot of water, and it was very good, and Lino felt lighter, and Lino felt lighter than ever. Lina had lost her parents too, but she had survived by herself. He was happy to have got his first friend. In the forest, it was difficult to survive, but Lino was successful in surviving by rapidly learning, and so he had learned to live. As the day went on, he still remembered his parents, but he was somehow happy to live his true adventure. He and Lina. Lino asked Lina if she was able to sing, and she began to sing. She was very clever. Lina taught Lino how to sing. Lina's family was rich, and she has studied a lot, but she hated to study. On the contrary, Lino belonged to a poor family, but he was curious. They scurried far and wide along the streets, the deserts, and the forest. Lino hopped high to impress Lina, but he hurt himself. Lina gave him her ribbon. Lino was curious why before he had asked her to let him see it, but she had refused. It was because it was so precious, but now she used it as a bandage for his little wound. They saw a fall, and they decided to go and see it. Lina leaned out because she was too curious, and she fell into the river. Lino became pale. His friend was in danger, and he had to save her. He saw a trunk vendor who was happy to give him one big trunk. He hopped on it to reach her in a while, but he saw a vital thing, a map on a parcel. There was a writing on it, the city over the forest, so there existed a city. He was able to reach her. Lina couldn't believe Lino had risked his life to save her. Lina asked, "Did you dive for me?" And Lino, "Yes, I did." But Lina asked, "How did you know that I was well and that you wouldn't hurt yourself?" Lino answered, "I couldn't know it, but I couldn't think of going on with my journey without you. I had to risk it. For a true friend, it's worth risking sometimes." All at once, there was another fall, and they fell. They were safe anyway, just very damp. At that time, they were on the trunk, and they were going toward an unknown destination. They stayed on the trunk for so much time that it seemed like an eternity. Lino told Lina the text he had seen, that there was a city. It was nice to travel on the river, too. When you lose your direction in the forest, the best thing you can do is to follow the river. Surely you will soon find a city on the river. They had to scamper on the riverside, but there was a metal smell, a bad one, and someone seemed to have dug. Who could it be? Maybe a curious animal. Anyway, they chose to land all the same because there were 2 berries on the poor little tree that someone had clumsily broken. So they could eat something. Maybe. Lina and Lino amused themselves, rolling down the hills. Lino looked up and saw that Lina had become a ball. She was rolling down so fast, they amused themselves so much. And Lino thought, hedgehogs can sing, they can dance, but they can't fly. Lina and Lino went to a hill to look at the stars. They were beautiful, but Lino looked at something else. Lina. He had fallen in love, but he didn't know what Lina felt, and he was afraid to tell her how he felt. But he decided it was worse avoiding to tell her so. Such beautiful feelings they were, and he couldn't stay in silence. So he told Lina that he had fallen in love since he had seen her for the first time, and that he had never met such a fine and beautiful and strong she-hedgehog. And he was so surprised, she told him, "So do I, but I was afraid to tell it." But luckily, our heroes had declared themselves sincerely, and they looked at each other as at the stars. It was very romantic. Together, with the night stars and the fireflies lighting them, a new light lit in the night, the light that can only be generated by love. Lina and Lino began to sing, and the surroundings started to live. Plants, colors, and fireflies danced in their sound. Dancing bioluminescent plants lived in 1,000 colors. It was to Lino an unknown power. It was not exceptional, it was just a bit perceptible, but it was beautiful in the dark night. They had a very long journey through the desert, risky and uncomfortable. They left the green hills to find the forest. They had heard some time before that there might be a town near there. Lino said that the box said there was a forest and the city over there. Lina and Lino saw an oasis and amused themselves a lot by playing with the water, and they drank a lot too. But then they looked better at that cursed forest. It was big and terrifying, and it was cursed according to local legends. They went in. They were scared, but they were always together. Lina began to sing with Lino to fight the fear, and when the sun appeared, there was nothing so frightening. There was also some animals, and there was an owl on a branch too. Even if it was so dark, it wasn't bad at all. Once they went out, they laughed a lot. It was not cursed. It seemed that they were just all superstitions. This didn't mean that maybe anything was true, but they couldn't find anything at least. Lino asked himself how many hedgehogs would believe the story of two little and seemingly helpless hedgehogs who lived well by searching for a new home through 1,000 adventures in deserts and mountains that adult hedgehogs feared too. That's true, told Lina. A story can always be real, even if it seems impossible. It's important to find the truth, told Lino. Anyway, forests are beautiful and magical places, but they must be respected too, because they can be dangerous and important to the environment. In the future, they might discover that some mystery is real. Lina asked Lino, "Do you believe in monsters' existence?" And Lino answered, "Yes, I think they exist, and I want to believe they exist, because if monsters do exist, heroes exist too, and they always wanted to be a hero." And yes, we puppies are in this way, little, curious, and adventurous. We live in freedom. Freedom is dangerous, but living in freedom is also wonderful. We can't live with helmets on our heads. We are adventurous, and we are finding what we need. They climbed on an edge. The forest was far away by now. They were in a vast land full of flowers and meadows. Lino and Lina had never seen so many big and little flowers with such intense color. They decided to look for grapes and fruits to eat. Lina made a basket with roots and little branches. They went toward the horizon, and Lino said, "I don't mind where I'm going since we are together." They hugged, understanding that a family offers shelter and warmth, and they became a family. The basket was ready, and Lino was so happy. He had found grapes, so he hadn't to dirty his bag. He hopped with joy. Lino went and picked up the grapes, while Lino played. They alternated between finding food and resting. Sometimes they made it together. Lino looked in his bag, and Lina gathered, but she suddenly saw a thrown or fallen rock over a bush. She wouldn't usually get close because it was full of spurs, but looking over the brush, she saw a little town. It was far away. Lina told Lino, and they went immediately there. After such a long time stepping on long streets, increasing their experience, and going through rivers and misty mountains, they became big puppies. They saw over a bush, no more an isolated pathway, as before, but a real road with signals, and it conducted to the city. So they followed the road, joking and smiling and singing. They were happy. They had arrived. It was a nice long road. The hedgehog's town was nearby. There were just a few pathways, a lot of which had been abandoned long ago. This road, on the contrary, brought them straight to the end of their journey. Or was it going to be their beginning of a new adventure? Lino asked. When they arrived, they were warmly received. It was a beautiful little town, very little but wonderful. Some hedgehogs were farmers, teachers, warriors, and travelers. They saw a hedgehog's group and they immediately became friends. One of them had a big bag and wanted to travel, but he hadn't ever done it. He was astonished, listening to Lino and Lina's adventurous travel tale. There was another hedgehog with a red hat who loved to eat a lot, have parties, and do sports with his best friends. This was a big and strong one, and he had a bag, and he wore boots sometimes. He was very nice, and he was the biggest and strongest among the three of them, and he always won every competition. After some time, Lino and Lina opened a free singing school where everyone could learn to sing, and everybody followed their example. Because it didn't matter where you were born or which family you came from, if you were poor or rich, It didn't matter your thorn's colors. Nothing. It was important to amuse yourself. It was important to learn. Everybody comes to life equal and ready to learn. Someone sprouts more prepared, but each one has its occasion to become the best. They were puppies, but it didn't mean they couldn't be brave and adventurous and strong. They were puppies, but strong. Such strong puppies they were. Despite the difficulties, you can be who you want to be. Lino and Lina couldn't find their parents, not yet, but they knew that they were near them. They met new friends, and they lived 1,000 more adventures, and they settled to live happily and to live the greatest of all adventures, to love freely. The end. Or maybe not. To be continued. This was Lino the Singing Hedgehog, Brave Puppy, The Adventures of Lino and Lina, the hedgehog who couldn't sing but learned thanks to love.